because I accidentally made that mistake. So just a tip. Hey guys, it's Keegan. Welcome back to my channel. Today's video, I wanted to talk about the process of renting an apartment. I recently just went through this entire process of finding an apartment, applying, getting pre-approved, getting approved, signing a lease, all of that stuff, and it's honestly a lot more than you would think. So I wanted to make a video for you guys if anyone is going through this process of trying to find an apartment to rent. So hopefully this will help you know what to expect for and to help you prepare a little bit better. Subscribe if you're not already, and yeah, let's get started. The first part to renting an apartment is to find an apartment. I think this is really fun to search apartments online. I always recommend researching apartments before you go book your tour with them. I used apartments.com. I really liked apartments.com because you could filter in your price range, how many bedrooms, how many bathrooms, the location. There's a ton of things that you can filter on that website. This video is not sponsored by anyone. I just really liked it. I was looking for apartments in Scottsdale, Arizona, but if you're looking for apartments in areas more like New York, Street Easy is a really great website that people use there. But those are always a really great place to find apartments within your price range. When you're searching for apartments, I would definitely recommend reading reviews. Just know that no apartment is going to have good reviews. Every single apartment that I looked at had some really great, some really bad ones. I would avoid apartments that have reviews like mold or flooding or like serious issues within there. I think every apartment has bad management. That is what I have come to terms with. Even if it's great management for one person, they're probably horrible to another who wrote a Yelp review. So that is something that you have to be like, okay. I always recommend touring an apartment before you move in if you can. So you can either call or schedule online on the apartment's website. I personally did all my apartment tours within one day. Each apartment tour where I live personally and for my personal experience was about 45-ish minutes. Also, if you're touring multiple apartments in one day, try to book the tours of the apartments that are like geographically close to each other, like back to back, just so like you don't have to like go back and forth, because I accidentally made that mistake. So just a tip. When I did my tours, I spaced each of them out an hour apart, and that really gave me time to like travel to each place and like finish the tour. So I would recommend doing that. I'm not going to physically say all this, but I asked all my followers and did some research online of what questions you should ask while you're touring an apartment. I'll put them on the screen. There's quite a bit of questions, so feel free to screenshot them, write them down, put them in your notes app, so when you're touring an apartment you have these on hand and ready to ask. I think these are all really great questions, and they kind of go into a different variety, like price point, what the community is like. There's really great questions in here. I asked you guys on Instagram to like put questions that you should ask apartments, so thank you to you guys. You guys came up with all of these. Some things that you should research about the apartment: look up the criminal record around the area. Someone said to check if there's any trains or like loud stuff nearby. Check if you're getting a phone signal while you're in the apartment complex. That's huge. I know someone that lives somewhere that literally had no phone signal. It was horrible. Even the Wi-Fi didn't work. I would also recommend going by the apartment at night to see if you feel safe as a young girl. That is something that is really important to me. And of course, as always, look at the reviews. So once you find an apartment, now it's application time. And the application is so much more than I thought it would be. I thought it was just like, okay, here's my name, here's my address, blah, 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 blah. No, they want so much information for you. This is what I've found online and what I personally experienced in my own application. Every application is a little bit different, but here are some things that you should maybe be prepared to have ready or know about. Also, be prepared that some apartments do have deals if you apply within 24 hours or within a week of touring. There was one apartment that I toured that offered a month free of rent if I applied within 24 hours of touring the apartment. So while you're touring apartments, just know there may be some places that these incentives might put a little bit more pressure on you. So just make sure when you're touring, you're aware of that and you know that you're in a place when, okay, yeah, I can do this soon. So here is what was on my personal application and what I found on Google to be on a lot of other people's personal applications. You can pick your unit on your application. So when you're touring, maybe ask like what units are available, which way are they facing? Is this like this a pool view? Is this like a street view? If they have a map of the apartment, have them highlight the units that are available on the map so you can pick which one that you want. You also put down your move-in date on the application. I know a lot of apartments try to get you to move in as fast as possible. One apartment that I was looking at, they're like, for every day that this apartment is on the market, the monthly rent goes up like $10 or $5 every single day. So if you push back your move-in date, that is something that you could risk. And then they're going to ask you for some personal information. So your full name, your email, your phone number, your birth date. Are you a US citizen? What is your social security number? And then they'll ask you for your driver's license information. So the driver's license number, the issue date, the expiration date, the country, and the state. They'll ask you for your current address. Some might ask you for a reason why you're moving. For me, my lease was ending here. Other places places like people are moving out of town for work. They also might ask you information about your current lease, what day you moved into your current place, what day you're moving out of your current place. They also might ask for like the apartment manager and their phone number, all of that information. And then if you have a car, they will definitely ask for your car information if you're planning on getting a parking pass, your car make, model, year, color, plate numbers, and state that your license plate is registered under. They also might ask you questions if you've ever been evicted or if you have a felony, anything like that. They'll probably ask you some information about your employment. If you're employed, who are you employed by, your employer's address, your employer's email and phone number, how much your yearly income is, what position you have within the company, when did you start working with the company, what is your job title. If you have roommates, they will most likely ask, who are you living with? Every single person that's living there obviously has their own application, but they will ask like, oh, I'm living with Sally. And then they will ask you for payment information to pay for your application. According to Google, I've seen most applications are anywhere from like $50 to $200. Mine was around $50 plus tax, so I didn't think that was too bad. I feel like that's about standard, but depending on where you live, the application fee may be a little bit more. If you have a pet, you will probably have a pet application. I personally don't have a pet, but I did my research on if you do have a pet. They will ask you, do you have pets and what type of pet? Typically it's like a dog or a cat. The name of your pet, how cute, the color of your pet, the breed of your pet, how much they weigh. A lot of apartments do have weight limits, like if your dog is over 100 pounds, some apartments may not accept that. The age of your pet, and then they'll ask for their vaccination information. Sometimes they ask it for on the application, sometimes they ask it for a little bit further down the road, but you will need to have all of your pets vaccinated and all of that stuff. If you do have a pet, it is pretty expensive to live in an apartment because there's typically an application fee for your pet, a deposit for your pet, a monthly fee for your pet, and then you have to pay tax on all of that. Your application may also ask if you have a guarantor. I believe that's how you pronounce it. If you guys don't know what a guarantor is, it's another word for a co-signer, and by definition, a guarantor is someone who agrees to be legally responsible for paying the rent as if the tenant cannot pay for one reason or another. So some reasons that you could need a guarantor is you have bad credit, you're lacking credit of any kind, just like you don't have a credit score, you have bankruptcy on your credit report, you've been evicted in a previous rental property, your employment history is unreliable, or your proof of income does not meet the standard. Typically, your proof of income is that you make 3 times more than the monthly rent, which honestly, in this day and age, is outrageous. It is what it is. Typically, a guarantor is your parents. When I moved into my college apartment, they didn't care if I could physically afford this place all by myself. They still required a guarantor. Non-college apartments probably aren't requiring that as much, but that is something that you might need. So it can be your parents. It doesn't have to be your parents. There are ways of getting around having a guarantor. I'm not going to go into that in this video, so I would recommend Googling it and researching it. Everyone's situation is completely different, but if you don't have a guarantor and you need one, I would recommend talking to the apartment and doing some research online about that. Your guarantor will also fill out an application with very similar questions to what you had to fill out, and they will have to pay an application fee, which is great, and tax on that application fee. So the order of how you rent an apartment is you apply. So that whole application process was just one step, and then you get pre-approved. So basically they take everything that you said, they're like, great, and then they need confirmation on all that. So typically you'll have to send them maybe your W-2s or some income sheet. They need some proof of what you're saying is in fact true. After you're pre-approved and you send them all that paperwork that like, yes, I'm good, I'm not lying to you, then you typically get approved, and then you sign the lease. From my personal experience, most of this is through email. It's not like physical papers being printed out and that you're writing down. I think that's just like with technology in the day and age. Keep in mind that every apartment is different, so the order and the process that you went through or the application questions may be different. If you at all in this video are like, I'm saying something and you're like, oh, I had a different experience, feel free to comment it. Like, I won't be offended. Everyone has such a different experience, and I just want to make a video that will help people. So if your experience was different, share it down below because it may help someone else who had a different experience than me. I also am such a to-do list stan. You guys know this. I love my to-do list. So I made a moving to-do list section of this video. Here are some things that you'll probably have to do in order to get an apartment. So like I said, from the pre-approval to the approval stage, you have to submit some paperwork. So here are some things that you may have to submit before, after, during, etc. You'll probably have to submit your proof of employment or income. For me, I had to submit 3 bank statements because I'm self-employed. I own my own like little small to-do list business and I do YouTube. But if you are a W-2 worker, you can submit your W-2. I've seen other places allow you to submit like your savings so they can see like, okay, you have enough to cover the entire 12 months of rent. Every place is different. Everyone has different procedures. Ask your apartment, ask your leasing agent, but you will most likely have to submit some type of proof of income. You will also probably have to get renter's insurance. This is something that always flew over my head and I completely forgot. So you can get renter's insurance in a couple of ways. I personally bundled it with my auto insurance, so I paid it once. You can also pay it monthly. I've also lived in college apartments that allow you to get renter's insurance through the apartment it does cost more to do that. So there's a bunch of different ways to get renter's insurance, but you need to get it before you move in. How my renter's insurance worked is I bundled it with my auto insurance, and then they sent me like a PDF of like, okay, everything's good, and then I just emailed it to my leasing office. You also have to set up your electricity account. You need to make sure to do this before you move in. Google how to do it. I think it's probably different in every state, every city. Make sure you set up your electricity account. If you have a pet, you need to submit your pet vaccinations like I previously talked about. I also recommend forwarding your mail to your new address. I would also recommend researching on how to do this because it's probably different everywhere that you live. And then you're most likely going to need to get a cashier's check. Every place is different. My personal experience, I have to get a cashier's check, and some places make you do a cashier's check of first month's rent, last month's rent, or your prorate. For my personal apartment, I had to get a cashier's check on my prorate. If you don't know what a prorate is, because I had no idea what a prorate is. A prorate is when a resident occupies a room for only a partial term, a month, week, day, etc. The amount an owner charges is known as a prorate rent. Prorated rent is charged for only the number of days the unit is occupied. That is the Google definition. Honestly, I'm reading that and I'm like, well, basically, if you're only living in an apartment for half the month, you only have to pay for that half of the month. You're not paying for what you don't live in, so you're not paying a full month's rent. So I had to get a cashier's check for only the little portion of the month's rent that I'm living in. Every apartment requires different things. Most places honestly require money up front. I would also recommend setting up your internet or scheduling someone to come in and help you with your internet. Some apartments do offer internet within like their lease and their monthly rent. They offer internet, but if you don't, you might want to have someone come or like get a cable box. I don't know. And think about internet though. You also will probably want to schedule your move-in. Every place is completely different. Some places have exact times that you can move in, some don't. And then of course, sign the lease. Make sure you read it first. So let's talk about money. I don't think I mentioned the deposit yet, so you'll have to pay your deposit as well. So when you are renting an apartment, it's not just, okay, this is my monthly rent. There's actually a lot more that goes into it. So I wanted to start with the one-time fees. You'll have to pay to apply. So your application fee, like I said, anywhere from $50 to like $200, depending on where you live and what apartment it is. You'll also have a security deposit. I feel like most places that I've seen, the security deposit is like $500, give or take. Depending on where you're moving into, they might have certain deals where they waive the security deposit or they waive the application fee. So make sure to ask about that. If you have a pet, you will also need your pet security deposit. Your security deposit, in my eyes, is like, I damaged the apartment, I don't get that money back. If I don't damage the apartment, I get that money back when I move out. Again, every apartment is different, so keep that in mind. There's also an administrative fee. Some apartments may not have this. That is for the leasing office and all the people getting all your paperwork and everything arranged. There also may be an elevator reservation fee. Personally, where I live, we don't have that, but I've seen some people in the East Coast have to pay to reserve an elevator to move in for the day. You also might have to pay your prorate, which is what I previously talked about. And then of course, you have to pay tax on all of that, all of it. And those are just the one-time fees. Let's talk about the monthly charges that you have to pay. Your rent is almost never what is listed online. So if you see rent online that says $2,000, you're most likely not gonna pay $2,000. You're most likely gonna pay more than that. So obviously what goes into your rent is your rent, the rental amount for the apartment, and then you have the fees. Every apartment has different fees, so this is just listing off a few. This may be a longer list than your apartment has fees for. Your apartment may have fees for other things that I'm not mentioning. Make sure to ask. That is one of the questions to ask when you're touring. There's probably going to be a trash fee. Some apartments have valet trash, like people will come pick it up outside your apartment door. Other places have a trash chute. There may be an amenity fee, amenities for like the pool, the gym, etc. If you have a pet, you may have pet rent, so like a monthly fee every single month for your pet. Cable and internet may be included, it may not be. You may have to pay that separately, but some apartments include it. You may have to pay for parking, and sometimes there's different levels of parking, so outdoor, indoor, garage, covered parking. Some apartments, like the first parking spot is free, but then if you have a roommate, you have to pay for other parking spots. There may be like a technology package that your apartment forces you to pay the fee for. If your apartment is furnished, this apartment that I'm currently living in is furnished, like this bed came with the apartment, so I have to pay every single month a furniture package fee. Some apartments have upgraded features, so you may have to pay for your upgraded features fee. Some apartments have pest control, so you have to pay monthly for like them to spray. And then on top of all that, you have to pay tax on all of it. I always forgot that tax was a thing. Like, I know I pay tax all the time, but when you see how much your apartment costs listed out and then you see tax and you're like, renter's insurance, like I said, you can pay that monthly or all at once, and then you will most likely have to pay utilities separately. What goes into utilities, you may ask? Water, sewer, electric, and gas. Sometimes more, sometimes less, depends on the place. This is just you know, a list online. So I hope this video was helpful. I kind of feel like it was scattered all over the place. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask them down below. And if someone asked a question down below that you know the answer to, feel free to give them your answer. I just want this to be a super helpful video for someone going through renting an apartment for the first time, so you know what you're looking for, what you're getting yourself into, and just you're overall prepared. So I hope this video helped. I hope it wasn't too scatterbrained, but I love you guys so much, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!